Hello, I am Eric Stoff. I make music with my wife and my friends in a band called the Stoffs. And I don't know who you are, but you are watching an episode of Little Flock Deconstructed. It is a video series in which I break down the lyrics and inspiration and the production behind my 2019 album, Little Flock. This is a beer because my marketing research team told me having an alcoholic beverage in my hand would make me more relatable to you humans. I mean, you, us. Today we're talking about Sheep. It is the third song on the album. It is very joyful. It has kind of like a Pink Floyd, Nels Cline style guitar solo as the outro. And it is where the album's theme of sheep and shepherding comes from. So first we're going to talk about lyrics, and then we will talk about production. So Sheep is one of the two joyful songs on the record. Sheep and Suspended and Safe. Those are the two that I would consider being like a positive from a lyrical standpoint. Suspended and Safe is all about rejoicing because God provided for my family, and Sheep is about how good it is to be a child of God. The lyrics are very simple and straightforward. In fact, they might be the most straightforward lyrics on the album. It's all about what a joy it is to be one of God's sheep and to follow as he leads. The chorus says, "This comfort, this confidence, oh what a joy, this privilege, this assurance, daily I will employ." So Psalm 23 is one of the most famous and well-known psalms that there is. David compares himself to a sheep under the watch of God as his shepherd. He says that God makes him lie down in green pastures, leads him beside quiet waters. You have probably heard some of those lines before, whether or not you are familiar with the book of Psalms or the Bible in general. But that psalm has such a spirit of peace and assurance that I really wanted to communicate with this song. I was also really interested in sheep and shepherds when I was writing and recording and putting this whole album together. I had this really deep understanding going on that I was very stupid and stubborn and just a totally helpless sheep in the flock of God's children. But at the same time, I was stepping into a new role as shepherd of my own family. It was a really weird place to be in, knowing just how reliant and dependent I am on God, but also understanding that my family and my kids and my household really depends on Brooke and I shepherding them well. So I read a lot about sheep and shepherds. I watched videos, I listened to podcasts. One of the books I read was A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23 by Philip Keller. It was a really great and short read, and it played a huge part in shaping the perspective of this song, which is being confident and comforted and joyful to have a shepherd such as Christ and living my life out in a way that reflects that assurance. So like I said, pretty simple lyrics, just very straightforward. So let's talk about production. So Sheep came about in 2015. I wrote the song with the riff on acoustic guitar, a little bit of piano, and bass guitar in the first demo, which I was able to track down on an old hard drive.
Oh, what a joy to be one of your sheep. Follow as I am led.
I remember being really into it when I was recording it, but then the next day when I listened back, I thought it was really sterile sounding and a little bit too proper for my style. But let's talk about that riff for a second, because it uses an interval that I use pretty often. It's the sixth tone in the major scale. If you're talking in solfege, it is La. Do, so, la, mi. Do, so, la, mi. Should I name the song Salami? So I use that interval in several different riffs. It comes up in Mind Rot. The song Hurricane is also built around major sixth chords.
You take what you can.
Wisdom's Perfume is a song off of a 2016 EP we did, and that main riff is so I use that interval a lot, and now that I'm revealing my secret interval weapon, I need to change up my tactics. But anyway, we didn't really like that first demo. A little while later, I added electric guitar instead of acoustic guitar, and then I added a drum kit and some arpeggiated bass. If you're listening carefully, you will notice that the electric guitar in that demo is still the main electric guitar in the final version, and that is because I fell in love with that tone and the spirit of that take, and I didn't want to try to recreate it. I thought it was perfect the way it was. And Sheep is actually the only song in all of Little Flock that uses a real physical guitar amp. I had a Fender 212 DeVille, which is kind of like an entry-level tube amp, and I recorded the demo using that amplifier, sold the amplifier, and then I started using amp modeling software and my Line 6 Helix. That guitar take was just so perfect that I never ended up trying to recreate it. It also uses one of my favorite guitars I've ever owned. It was a 1990s Photo Flame Telecaster that I sold for funds to go on a missions trip. So I think I'm legally obligated to say that it was worth it, but I miss that guitar a lot. I've actually tried to track it down and no such luck. And then Luke Cross added real drums to the song, and it really came to life. And I really think the drums and bass are a key component of Sheep, and they just set up this groove that just sits back and it just feels so steady. Matt Seward joins me on vocals. He did an incredible job of matching my vocal timbre. Matt's got an incredible voice on his own.
To see your will be done, I'll do whatever you ask.
But he also, I found out, has a really great ability to mimic other people, because there are times when I'm listening and I forget that it's Matt because it doesn't sound like Matt, it sounds like me. And Ben Fuller also joins us on piano. I had programmed piano in there and it was not cutting it, so I had Ben come in and play piano because it really needed that humanized touch, and his playing really brought the song to life. I took that old arpeggiated bass idea and I actually turned it into a couple different arpeggiated synthesizers that are panned side to side, and they also have like different filter sweeps going on throughout the whole thing. I was really wary of overdoing it with those arpeggiated synths, but I think they serve a really good purpose in the first part of the song, coming in and then cutting out, and then in the second part of the song they kind of sit lower in the mix and just they're part of that groove that just keeps trucking the whole time. Here's a little trivial thing for you. In the first chorus, there's a little voice, I think it's in the left channel. It's just counting, and then I pitched it up because, as we've discussed already, I like pitch shifted vocals.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You can barely hear it, but that's the kind of painstaking detail that you get rewarded with by watching these videos. In verse 2, I really went all out in creating this like psychedelic textural groove that just like sits back and is just steady as heck. So there's drums and bass obviously, and piano. That's kind of the rhythm section, like holding down the fort. The guitar is doing its thing obviously, and then we add in the arpeggiated synths, some extra percussion, and then we add in some noodle guitar. It's like super clean and compressed, and I have it kind of ping-ponging back and forth from the left channel to the right channel. At the end of the second chorus, Matt and I do this call and response thing over the line, "Daily I will employ."
Daily I will employ. 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 Daily I will employ.
And then the guitar solo, probably my favorite guitar solo that I've ever recorded. I improvised this solo when I was recording at a time where my guitar chops were a lot stronger than they are now. And I fell in love with most of it. There was a couple little things that I changed. I didn't like this part right here. So I diced up some audio from later in the solo, put it in its place, and then I pitch shifted it. And I think that sounds a billion times better. I think it's beautiful, and it sounds to me like something Nels Cline would play without having to chop up audio and pitch shift things around. And Ben Fuller, killing it again, just absolutely brings the guitar solo, the outro, he just brings it to a whole new level. He's playing some really beautiful extensions and chord voicings to go along and match the mood of my guitar solo, and it really just adds like this haunting beauty and like this mystique. What else? So the transition into the solo was the idea of Taylor Blythe. He said he was listening to the demos and he said, dude, there needs to be some sort of break there. You need to take like a breath out of the second chorus before you dive into the solo. We paused the song and I got up and started chopping up the audio and kind of arranging it as he talked me through it and as he described. That night I had Taylor over for dinner and we listened through the demos and I just asked his thoughts. And he actually kind of stepped into a producer role for the night and just ended up giving me like a handful of just brilliant ideas that I ended up using on the record. Taylor is an awesome friend and a brilliant artist, and I don't work with him enough. And then also for the guitar solo, there's some ambient stuff going on underneath in the rhythm section to kind of make it sound bigger and more expansive. Luke's drums obviously open up. He does a great job of shaping the moment by playing differently. And then I also added more of the room microphones into the mix, which make the drums sound bigger, kind of looser and softer, I would say. And all of those things kind of take that outro to a new place. The song really starts off as a little bit more of a tight groove at the beginning, but by the end we're like totally in Spaceland. And that is the story of Sheep. It is one of the most chill songs on the album, but it has become one of the most popular as well. And it is also it was also really key in shaping the theme of the album. Sheep and Shepherd are kind of like these milestone songs in the record. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video about Sheep. I hope you are able to listen with new ears now that you know the story behind it and all the different phases it went through in the creative process. Please make sure you subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up, and follow me on Instagram at EricJStoff. And I will see you next week with a video about the song Pasture. It's a weird one. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.